Hi guys, are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Is the line clear? Is the voice clear? Are you able to hear me? Is the line clear? Is the voice clear? Are you able to hear me? Okay, now in this session, I'm going to continue from where I stopped in the last class. Now we are going to begin a new discussion, a brand new discussion about the Mauryan architecture. The voice and video are clear? No resounds, no multiple sounds, no unique sounds, nothing, right? Sultanat, I'm actually live. Are you not able to see me, Sultanat? Just refresh once. Right? Hmm. So we've come to session to discuss about Indian art and culture. And in the previous sessions, we've been discussing about Indus Valley civilization and the different features of Indus Valley civilization. And okay, got it, got it. Okay. So, with the coming of Mauryan civilization, or with the coming of Mauryas in 300 or 3rd century BC, a new development started in India's architectural styles. Till now, after seeing a growth in the um, after seeing the growth of architectural periods in Indus Valley, now with the coming of Maurya, with the Vedic period, when we see a decline, Mauryans brought a new pattern, entirely new pattern. Mauryan civilization brought new architectural styles, new methods. Okay, now the speciality about Mauryans is the beginning of rock cut architecture. See, until even with the Indus, the plan was generally constructing, right, using brick by brick and constructing it. Mauryans changed it. They brought stone cut. So using the existing stone structures and carving them. Mauryan arts began to be, we can observe Mauryan art to have been a major style produced in the Mauryan period, which ruled over Indian subcontinent from 322 BC to 185 BC. Now, the most important feature of the Mauryan period, or the Mauryan art, that you will have to recognize is the transition from wood-based architecture to stone-based architecture. Now, stone starts to become the most important feature of the Mauryan art forms or the Mauryan architecture. Now, according to historian Ananda Kumaraswamy, who wrote a writing about Mauryan architectural styles in 1923. Anand Kumaraswamy said that the first phase of Mauryans is actually found in some instances of representation of Vedic deities like Surya, Indra, observed in the Baja caves. Okay, so he says there were three phases in architecture. In the early phase, we see the later Vedic influence, saying Surya and Indra in the Baja caves in the Mauryan period, in the first, second, and first century BC. Now, in the second phase was the court art of Ashoka. Okay, where we see the development of proper court art, primarily monolithic columns, single beam or a single stone pillars on which the edicts are inscribed or content is written. And in the third phase, we see the beginning of new pattern, that is brick and stone architecture, a combination of these two. For example, Lomarishi caves, Baravara caves, small monolithic rail at Sanchi, ornamentation, even sculptures are observed in the third stage. Even sculptural patterns and sculptures are observed in the third phase of Mauryan arts. Okay, now before we continue, quick announcement, guys. This Sunday, do not miss it, which is tomorrow morning 11 a.m. Do write the combat. Use the subscription code RKIAS Live. Use this code, write the exam. You will get scholarships worth 4 crores. Rank 1 to rank 3 is 100% scholarship. Rank 4 to rank 10 is 75% scholarship. Rank 11 to 50, 50% scholarship. And rank 51 to 500 get 25% scholarship over their subscriptions. Now, these tests can be written live on Android app as well as your websites. Okay, 56 questions, 60 minutes, and all India test. Okay, from the 15th, guys, also new batches are starting. I'll be doing the history classes in these new batches. And do see me in these batches. The comprehensive batch course of GS in UPSC CSC English is going to start from 15th of December. Also 2 years batch for 2023. Okay. Now, Vasudeva Rao, then you are eligible for scholarship, right? 25%. Yes. Now, coming back to what we were discussing in the last class. Okay. Now, Sultanate, we do not actually use a stone today, primarily because, say, I'll tell you two. There are two major reasons to why we don't use stones anymore. See, number one, stones are complicated procedure, right? Now, second reason primarily would be paucity of stones. Paucity means lack of availability. Now, obviously, while we want to construct using stones, don't you think availability of stones will play a major role in and becomes a major deciding factor about the stones? The availability of stones is also extremely important, right? The stones have to be available in the first place. The stones are, why I say stones are complicated is, cutting a stone is not so easy. See, it's not as if like a brick or like any other machine, or we just take a little tool and then start drilling it or cutting it. It doesn't work that way. Getting access to these stones, getting access to these cutting features is going to be very difficult for us. And then there is a severe shortage of stones, right? Paucity of stones. That's another big major problem with these. Okay. Now, coming to the city of Patliputra, one of the magnanimous examples of Mauryan architecture, Greek ambassador Megasthenes, in his book Indica, very clearly described about Patliputra and the city of Patliputra. Paucity means deficit. Yes, there is a very strong shortfall of stones. I mean, we don't have that many stones available in the first place now. Greek ambassador Megasthenes served in the Mauryan court. He wrote a book, Indica. Okay. That's Sultanate. That's a question which most of we archaeologists, we historians do not have an answer. I'll give an example. Ellora, the cave, which was obviously carved in the Gupta period. Even by most liberal estimates, Ellora has left nearly 22,000 tons of stone waste. We don't know where it is. No evidence of it. Coming to Patliputra. Patliputra covers an area around 23 miles. And the city was established in parallelogram 9 miles by 2 miles. 9 by 2. And was adorned with 64 gates, 570 towers. Towers like this. If you see towers, I'll show you the image of towers. Like this. 62 gates and 570 towers like this. Continuously. This is how Patliputra might have looked like. Yes. Yes. Maybe. It's very hard. It's very hard where how to analyze something of that size being built. Okay, a number of wooden posts with big holes or archery form the fence called palisades that cover the Mauryan city from outside with long ditches for sewage and defensive purposes. So it looks almost like this. Around the Patliputra city, this is how Mega Indica in the book Indica, Megasthenes described the Patliputra city might have been 11 by 2, sorry, 9 by 2 miles. And then around the city, he says, there was a canal, most probably for defensive purposes, with pitch ditch. He says around the city, it was like this. So most probably like this. And yeah, you know how in the old movies they show this? Outside the gate of the city, there will be a water canal, and they'll put a gate on the water canal to come here. In the movie Bahubali also they showed, if this is the palace gate. And then the gate will be lifted like this, coming from here. Yes, the design of Patliputra. Design of Patliputra. Yep. British explorer W.A.L.A. Waddell in 1895 was the guy who actually excavated Patliputra for the first time in Bulandi Bagh in Patna, modern day Patliputra. Now, when he did exploration and further when they started to do exploration, huge logs of wood were found under the city. Now, this is what made us really shocked about Patliputra. See, the uniqueness or the shocking thing about Patliputra is the size of the wood that we found under the city was somewhat huge, somewhat unheard of, unthought of. The wooden palisades or wooden platforms were discovered at Bulandi Bagh between 1926 and 1927 by M. Ghosh, J. A. Page, working for Archaeological Survey of India. And also AS Altekar and KP Jaiswal Institute dug out 80 pillars at the same place in 1955, 51 to 55. These are the ones I call palisades. Okay, something like this. These are wooden palisades which were dug up. You can see the log size of the wooden logs. See the size of the wooden logs. And as we dig, these are palisades. Platform types. On this, the entire city seems to have been built. And this theory that wooden palisades were found in Patliputra and they belong to Patliputra sit perfectly with the entire pattern that the whole city was built on wood. See, these palisades work like foundation. This was alluvial plain site, alluvial plain. The same logic of what concrete foundation does now. The same logic as what a concrete foundation does. Having a thick base, thick stable base in the bottom. A very thick and stable base in the bottom. Wooden palisades. Okay. Birds of silver color and golden color vines decorated luxurious pillars of the royal palace of Patliputra as defined by Megasthenes. See, naturally, I know, I understand the doubt of termites. Maybe there was some way for them to avoid this, right? I mean, जो लोग इतना बड़ा पैलेस लकड़ी का बना सकते हैं वो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं ना. What was scientific behind that is wood is easy, wood is decorative, unlike stone. Don't you think it is easy to carve the wood as against the stone? Don't you think it is easy? So that's why they did it. Present day city holds the following evidence of the Mauryan Empire. Near Kolua near Patna, where Buddha gave his last speech, has a lion pillar of 12 meters. The remains of huge hall of 80 polished grey tuner sandstone pillars is observed here in Patna, standing on wooden surfaces, supporting the wooden roof known as Assembly Hall of the 80 pillars. So what they did is they created a wooden platform with wooden palisades, erected stone pillars, and on this again they put wooden roof. A pillared hall. Yes, pillared hall. That is actually huge. That is huge. Very strong resemblance to the Persian palace but of a smaller size. Now that is why, particularly when it comes to Mauryan architectural styles, Mauryan architecture is not just only indigenous, it also has a lot of external influences. Yes, wooden architecture only bandaged by Mauryans. Guys, listen, the wood I'm talking, every wood doesn't get destroyed in water. Do you know that 80% of the world today also uses wood for construction? Do you know this? There are very few countries in the world who actually use concrete and brick for constructions. And these are mostly former colonial countries of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Do you know this? Wood is the major tool of construction. Wood. आज भी. Go to America, go to Australia, they still use wood as a major tool of construction. So never get shocked. Wood is cheap to rebuild, good to rebuild, cheaper in cost, environment friendly actually compared to concrete. Compared to concrete, very, very environment friendly. Now, when we go to detail into Patliputra, as I said, 9 or 9.5 miles by 2 miles, entirely timber enclosure. The city is full of timber pillars. The Chinese travelers even talk about a grand palace made of wooden pillars. Jabki it was actually grand palace made of wooden roof with stone pillars. This is what that excavation recently found out. The wooden platform with stone pillars. City of Patliputra is divided into 4 blocks. Rajaprasada, which is a grand palace. Hathi Khana, the elephantry center. Main palace is where the main hall is. And then grand hall, the open area outside the palace. In the movie Bahubali, this is kind of almost similar to Patliputra. The grand palace is the big balcony wala building. Hathi Khana is next right side to it. The main palace is where that lady is chained and she is jailed. And grand hall is where all that grand celebration happens. When Balal Dev is getting coronation. In that movie they showed Patliputra. Kind of looks like that. Ashoka also saw, also used Stone along with wood. During Ashoka's period, it was actually stone pillars completely with wooden roofs, or were stone structures with wooden beams. In Ashoka's period, they did this. Okay. Best example of Ashoka's period I'll tell you is Kumrahar Palace. Patliputra Palace and Kumrahar Palace. Now I'll give an example of how Kumrahar Palace looks like. Once I'm drawing. If you guys need, you can draw this. And trust me, nothing works in art and culture than your own drawing in remembering facts. This is how Kumrahar Palace used to look like. A central pillar with slant roof, multi-story. Central pillar, slant roof, multi-storied construction. Kumrahar Palace. 9. Stone. Completely made of stone. Totally made of stone. Wood was the principal building material. Megasthenes even described this palace as one of the greatest creations. Okay, there is a central pillar and three-storied wooden structure in Kumrahar Palace. This might have been the central pillar structure. This could have been the central pillar structure, and then all this side support wooden beams. It kind of looks like a pyramid, pyramidal style palaces. Now that pyramidal style is an Achaemenid influence, no? Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Syrian influence. Clearly observed. Kumrahar Palace and the city of Patliputra. See that the towers. The series of towers, water source, wooden beams, and then enclosures around the city. Observed in Patliputra. As such, Mauryan architecture can be categorized or classified into two styles: court art and the popular art. Now, generally, court art is basically that which is sponsored by the state. Court art is that which is individual. Popular art. So this will have more standardization. This will be more diverse. Palaces, as I said, Kumrahar Palace. Palaces, pillars, stupas. Palaces, pillars and stupas are court art, pottery, sculptures, caves are more individualistic. Now, palaces, pillars, stupas, these are completely state sponsored, state controlled, state sponsored, state takes care of it. Whereas popular art is more pyramidal, more diverse, more individualistic. So there is a lot of differences. Okay. In the pyramidal type of palaces, there is a central pillar, central support pillar. Now, if you see Patliputra as a state, in Patliputra we see a pillar construction also specific. Now, the speciality of this is it has a lot of Greek and Roman influence. The Patliputra capital dated to around 3rd century BC, you can see in the background, has been excavated in the city of Patliputra. It is described as having Perso-Leonic influence. It is called Perso-Leonic influence with Hellenistic patterns. See this, can you see, one second, I'll show you this. You see this, right? This pattern on the side of pillar. This is basically Persian style. And this designing which is there, this bulge designing and this geometric pattern designing that is there, this is actually native Indian style. And the carvings on the top are Greek. This side carvings, you can't see here detailedly, they are Greek. So a mix of multiple carvings. The monumental piece of architecture tends to suggest accompanied Hellenistic artistic influence on the Mauryan pillar. So whenever asked, if at all ever it is asked to you, the different influences in Mauryan art, or can you strictly say Mauryan painting styles were strictly indigenous? They were not. They had Achaemenid and Hellenistic influence. Unlike Indus, who were strictly indigenous, these guys had a lot of foreign influence. Unlike Indus people who were strictly indigenous, these people were having extensive amount of foreign influence. Emperor Ashoka also erected many religious pillars throughout India. Most of Ashoka's pillars were carved of two types of stones. Now, primary material of stones, they were spotted, right? With and white sandstone. Spotted red stone and white sandstone. We see a lot of constructions made of pillars of this. Some of these were buff colored stones, finely grained, hard ground stones, usually with black spots, or tuner stone with spots. But as such, white stone or red sandstone, these were the most important. These were the most well known. The uniformity in Ashokan style of pillar capitals suggests that they were all sculpted by craftsmen from the same region. Now, this is something which we see. When we see pillars of a particular pattern or a particular region of Harappa, of Maurya, we somehow observe a particular style, a particular pattern, a particular structure. It would therefore seem that the stone transported from Mathura and Chunar to various sites where the pillars have been found here, the stone was cut and carved by the craftsmen. So stone was brought to a place and then cutting was done on the spot in the place. No alterations. And most of these stones were also given fine polished characteristics of the Mauryan architecture. See this, see example our emblem, Sarnath emblem, a Sarnath lion sculpture. See how fine finish it is. Perfectly fine finish and polished finish, which we observe in these pillars. And nearly all these pillars were mainly erected in the Gangetic plains. See, Mauryan pillars, they were all erected in the Gangetic plains. They were inscribed with edicts of Dhamma or ritualness every now and then. Animal capital as a finely carved lifelike representation is very noteworthy in the Sarnath of the lion capital of Sarnath. This one, many of these pillars today, if you see, even replicas of these pillars are available at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Rashtrapati Bhavan, yes. The bull capital of Rampurva and the lion capital of Rauri and Andhikar are other two examples. Sultanate, it's kind of between hot and cold, yes. Much speculation has been made about the similarity between these capitals and Achaemenid works. Again, these pillars are also highly influenced from Achaemenid design, the Syrian style of pillar architecture and Syrian style of pillar constructions. Very highly influenced, these pillars. Okay. Main identified features of the Mauryan pillars. Number one, the pillars were mainly monolithic, unlike Achaemenid style, who were multilithic. Now, what I mean by monolithic is the pillar itself is made of a single stone structure. The pillar itself is made of a single stone structure. Okay. Uniformity of all pillars in Mauryan art is special. See, pretty much the entire Mauryan pillars, you start from Bengal, go until Kashmir and Afghanistan. They all look similar. The pillars are also made of Chunar sandstone. One very important standard feature. Okay. And use of animals and birds, particularly animals, were used extensively on these pillars to decorate the pillars and to give the artistic aestheticity to the pillars. Pillars at that time were highly polished, and that polishing thing shows Iranian influence, Persian influence. See, this part always keep in mind that anything Persian, now that could be painting, that could be architecture, that could be sculpture, anything Persian. Persians give always extensive focus on beauty rather than utility. For Persians, beauty part is extremely important than utility of something. And pillars also have different types of abacus. Abacus is basically that platform on which the animal is carved. Now, abacus could be square, abacus could be circular, multiple shape, and then bell-shaped capital. Okay, I'll give an example for this. Every pillar will have these four structures as a mandatory feature, bare minimum. Every pillar will have. Let us put a circular pillar. Animal, motif, abacus, capital, shaft. Animal could be anything. The motif could be anything. Could be a single animal, could be a bird, could be 4 or 5 animals, however it is. Abacus is that platform on which the construction is done. It could be square or it could be circular. Capital is bell or lotus shape. One of these. And then shaft, monolithic. Polished. Very fine finished. Very fine finished. Now this is a standard way of the Mauryan pillars that were there. The primary difference, as you can see, as I've already highlighted, the main difference that you observe in the Mauryan pillars is Mauryan pillars are monolithic shaft, whereas Achaemenid pillars from which they are influenced are multilithic. So motif, abacus, capital, shaft. Motif is animal or a bird, generally animal. Abacus has inscriptions either circular or square. Capital is lotus shaped and bell shaped. Shaft is single stone, hence monolithic. Now, see, the reason for them focusing so excessively on the beauty aspect might be because of a cultural feature. The Persian cultural system has always been that way. Okay, now most of the bell-shaped capitals which we observe here, those are of Persian influence or Iranian influence, and the pillar itself are always made of Chunar sandstone. Pillar itself are made of Chunar sandstone. Mauryan pillars are monolithic. Achaemenid pillars are not monolithic that we observe. And Achaemenid pillars are never erected independently. Now, this part you always remember. Achaemenid pillars not erected independently. I mean, they are erected as part of another greater construction. Like, suppose the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. So, among those pyramids, you will see an Achaemenid pillar. But here, Mauryans used to erect pillars independently, completely independently. Mauryans have this practice of erecting pillars independently, without any. Most of the times, pillars are just commemorative for Mauryans. They are not indicative of any particular information. They are just made that way. Star attraction of our pillars, of all the Mauryan pillars, one of the most important is the Sarnath pillar. Remarkable pillar, highly polished, and lion capital was used on it, which is also used as government's emblem today. Right? In lion emblem, 4 lions represent the 4 cardinal directions. Round abacus is used with 4 dharmachakras or wheel of law, the Chatur Dharmachakra. Elephant, bull, horse and lion are depicted on the abacus. They are well polished. And the lion shows the greatest power and dignity for these guys. Animal on the abacus makes us know that they were animal friendly. Okay. The presence of animals even on the abacus part, on this part, along with these 4 lions, makes us indicate they were animal friendly. The postal government of India's emblem. If you observe government of India's emblem, this one, the national emblem. A galloping horse on the west, a bull in the east, an elephant in the south, and a lion in the north. The 4 animals representing 4 directions on the emblem. The abacus on the animal part of the Sarnath pillar forms an official emblem of government of India. The elephant depicts Queen Maya, elephant in the south, a white elephant entering her womb. The bull in the east indicates zodiac sign Taurus in the month in which Buddha was born. The horse indicating west represents the horse Kantaka, which Buddha took in the Mahabhinishkramana when he was actually giving up his family life or settled life, when he was giving up his family life. And the lion in the north shows the path of enlightenment or attainment of enlightenment. Very clearly indicative of Buddha. The national emblem of India with the words Satyameva Jayate from Mundaka Upanishad were actually carved, are inscribed on the abacus in Devanagari script. The capital is crown of the wheel of law. Okay, the crown capital. Another important pillar, very popular in Bihar, is the Rampurva bull capital. Today you see near the parliament. Its construction is of around the 3rd century BC. Mixture of Indian and Persian elements. It has a lotus capital. See this? The lotus capital. It has a very clear lotus capital. A round abacus. Motifs on the abacus are very, very beautiful. These motifs, these designs which are given on the abacus. Decorative elements like rosette, palmetto, anthacus ornaments are used. Because see, if you see some of the flower designs which are observed in the abacus here, they are not Indian. They are actually Roman. Rampurva bull capital in Bihar, Rampurva region, is the pinnacle masterpiece of Indian craftsmanship, particularly polished. It is the pinnacle of polishing craftsmanship. Okay, the Rampurva bull capital, and very good. Now, focus points to remember in Mauryan period art. Mainly pillars were monolithic. Pillars were on sacred sites, so it was individual sites. The height of the pillars were about 30 to 40 feet and they are crowned by animal figures. Pillars are inscribed with Buddhist concept of morality or dharma. Okay, what was the purpose of these pillars? The pillars were mainly the symbol of the state. They were used to declare victory, and pillars were used to spread moral ideas or dhamma. Okay, pillars were used to spread moral ideas or dhamma. Almost all the pillars, they were used for these purposes. In Mauryan art, pillars played a very important role and actually a substantial role in understanding, defining Mauryan art. And see, pillars were these all indigenous completely, or did they have foreign influence? Were these indigenous or did they have foreign influence? They did have a lot of foreign influence, right? They did have a lot of foreign influence. Mainly Achaemenid and Hellenistic influence. Achaemenian and Hellenistic influence. Achaemenian and Hellenistic influence. Rampurva bull capital and Sarnath pillar of our national emblem. That's it in this session, guys. In the next session, tomorrow night at 10 p.m. same channel. Do subscribe to this channel. We will continue with stupas, where we will be drawing stupas and we will see certain peculiar features of stupa. Thank you for your time. Do join me tomorrow in the night, guys, and meanwhile tomorrow morning do not forget to write the exam combat 11 a.m. Hellenistic is Roman. Guys, some terminology if you remember is Hellenistic is generally a word used to refer Greco-Roman. It's a word given to indicate Greco-Roman. Okay. Achaemenian or Achaemenid or Achaemenian is a word used for Syria, Mesopotamia region. Syria, Mesopotamian region. Achaemenian is basically Syrian, Mesopotamian region. In those places, you see a lot of uh, independent Egyptian style at a later period. Now, Arvind, what do I mean by no independent construction is Mauryan pillars are constructed just like that independently, wherever it is. 84,000 pillars by Ashoka in total. Whereas Egyptian Achaemenid style is erected as part of a greater construction. They build a big city, a big palace, and erect pillars. So pillars in Achaemenid, Syrian, Mesopotamian are independently not erected. They are erected always part of another greater construction. But in Mauryan, independent constructions. Okay? Individual. That's it in the session, guys. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.